Greetings. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, Project Team Building, Conflict and Negotiation. We've led to this all the way, and we've talked about how a project manager has to have great communication skills up and down the organization. And remember, in a functional organization, the functional manager is going to be the one to select the project team members, and the project manager may not even have them as direct reports. So building that project team and making sure a group of diverse people can work together is a big challenge for a project manager. So our unit outcomes are to demonstrate the understanding of the steps involved in a project team building and the cross-functional characteristics of a project team. Demonstrate the knowledge of the characteristics of effective project teams and why teams fail. So what are some of the tactics project managers use for effective team development? Some research has been done on this, and it covered some critical factors that contribute to cross-functional cooperation. So we have subordinate goals. Subordinate goals are, remember, our team is made up of different people from different functional areas, and that's true whether it's a projectized organization, a matrix organization, or a functional organization. These people come from different areas of the company, and they're going to have their own goals that may get in the way of someone else's goals. I saw an ad for a Tesla-inspired ice chest. It's actually solar powered. And just think of all the functional areas that had to work effectively together to bring that about. Of course, we have the engineers, manufacturing. The product had to be developed. We have accounting with the budget, and the product couldn't be developed until, the marketing research people couldn't do their jobs until we had a product available. So all those goals can get in the way of other people's goals, and they've got to learn how to work together, and that's the project manager's responsibility. Then we have rules and procedures. Project teams work inside the normal rules of an organization. But inside the team, they also have their own set of rules and procedures. What these do is help keep the project team on the straight and narrow, because there are consequences that happen if we can't get along within the project team. So the value of rules suggests that with an absence of cooperation among team members, a company can simply mandate that it occur. Physical proximity. In today's business environment, physical proximity is probably one of the least thought about things. It works really well if you've got all your project team members working in an area together so they can bounce ideas off each other, interact with each other, and have a one-on-one relationship with each other. But of course, as the pandemic has taught us, and as also very large projects have taught us, we have a lot of virtual teams. And that's a special management issue for a project manager. You've got, with some large projects, just enormous projects where you've got people all over the world on a project team in virtual time. So it's really difficult to form those kinds of relationships that the project manager needs to have with his project team. And that's a special management problem for a PM. But we have, in my work, we had at one time physical proximity among the instructors in the BAAS program. And as we moved to College of Innovation and Design, that structure sort of fell apart, but we still meet and have communication with each other, but it's not on a regular daily basis. And of course, with the pandemic, we have had all of our meetings virtually. So it's up to our manager then to manage us and get information to us in a virtual manner. And this is a problem for project managers. So if it's possible, physical proximity is really important. And then accessibility. This is where a person may be open or closed to communication. A person can be very aloof, not willing to share their data, and so they seem very inaccessible. Also, there may be outside elements that make people seem inaccessible. Of course, they've got their loyalty to the functional managers, and this is going to be something the PM has to manage. So the outcomes of cooperation are, of course, our task. Within the structure of the project, we're going to have many task outcomes. And so hopefully we've had team cooperation so that our tasks have been successful and we will actually end up with a good product. We also have the psychosocial outcomes. And this is where a project team realizes or not whether the project was actually a good fit for them and whether it brought about a good feeling so that they would want to be on other project teams. So some conclusions about good project team building. It's a good idea to make a project team as tangible as possible, to develop their own identity. Maybe give it a project team, give it a name that goes along with the product that's being developed. It's a good idea to have polo shirts with the insignia of maybe the new insignia for the project team so that everyone recognizes everyone else that's on that team. There's lots of ways for a project manager to make his team tangible. We want the project team to be proud of being on this project and to be proud of the product that they produce. Also, reward good behavior by being flexible, creative, and pragmatic. Project team members are professionals, and it's one way of being flexible is time off. Being able to work from home, being able to work their own hours because of family life or whatever else. And it's really a good idea to be flexible and creative in ways to reward that good behavior. And then a PM must develop a personal touch. He or she wants to have good one-on-one relationships with the project team. Then we have conflict. We've talked about the ways that a project team can be built, be tangible, be effective, people working together. You can imagine the disparity that comes from having people all over the organization or all over the world in different backgrounds and environments to come together and work on a project team successfully. So there's going to be conflict, and a project manager has to be able to manage that conflict. Conflict is a process that begins when you perceive that someone is frustrated or is about to frustrate a major concern of yours. And that just means that someone is about to get in your way, stop the process, argue with somebody else, all different things that cause the project to be teetering on the edge of disaster. And conflict is perpetual. It's going to just keep going and going. No matter how great people get along, there's going to be some kind of conflict. And there are three major types that your book discusses. Goal-oriented conflict regards results, project scope, outcomes, performance, specifications, and the like. So if we are arguing about the project scope, for example, project team members have input on the project scope, and they have a goal in mind and to keep the scope from creeping away. But perhaps there's conflict there because that goal isn't being realized. Then there's administrative conflict. Remember the hierarchy, and we've talked about the functional members may be reporting to two bosses. A project manager that's in a projectized organization is able to select his own project team members. But remember, some of these are contracted employees, and after the project is over, they won't have a job, most likely. So there's going to be some administrative conflict there. And then interpersonal. There's going to be personality conflicts. This is the one that most often happens. Engineers and accountants have very little in common. Engineers and human resources folks have even less in common. But if the project manager can set the goal for the project and have everyone looking forward, then he or she will be able to manage this conflict in an effective manner. A project manager has several means at their disposal to manage conflict. They can mediate the conflict, where the PM takes a direct interest between the parties and seeks to find a solution. Now, this type of a mediation takes judgment out of the equation. Diffusion implies that the project manager is more interested in the solution than he is in what caused the problem. So that takes the focus of blame off either party. Confrontation, on the other hand, is trying to get to the source of the problem, and that takes a lot more time and energy. So if he can diffuse the situation, he or she, then that's the better course. Then we have arbitration. Now this is where there is a judgment call from the project manager. The two or more individuals sit down and present their case to the PM, and the PM has to arbitrate between them and come up to a judgment as to who is right and who is wrong. Or we can control the conflict. If we have opposing personalities, for example, we need to try to keep them working apart so that they don't end up having to communicate with each other. Often that is not possible, but if it is possible, that's a good way to control the conflict. Then we have to accept the conflict in some cases. We have team members that are vital to the project, and sometimes they just don't like each other and they're not going to get along, but they've got to be mature professionals about it and do their very best to just accept that they don't like each other and go on with the project. Or we can eliminate the conflict. We can transfer people out of the project team and get replacements if we have functional area managers willing to do that. Or we can sever the contracts with people if we're in a projectized organization. All of these have strengths and weaknesses, and it's up to the project manager to manage the conflict. So we didn't talk about negotiation very much, but your book had a nice paragraph on it. So we've learned to demonstrate the understanding of the steps involved in a project team building and the cross-functional characteristics, and you'll be demonstrating the knowledge of these characteristics of effective project teams and why teams fail.